You're trying to figure out what's going to make your life better. And you're thinking about a different job, different house, different spouse. You're weighing in on what your life could be with something or someone else. And Jesus is saying, so I thought we'd do a little bit of walk through down memory lane here of some of the things that were once awesome to us, and then we found something better. Take a look at this. This is the OG iPod, okay? Remember this? No more going to the gym with your Walkman, or your CD player that skipped every time you moved, right? No, now you've got 10,000 songs in your hand. It weighs about 50 pounds, but that's okay. You'll deal with it. You ever watch a movie with your kids and you see somebody with one of these? And, because the movie was 20 years old or whatever, and they're walking around with it, and they've got the wire that comes out, remember the wire days, into their ears, My kids look at that like, how old is this movie? Was this black and white and now it's color? What's going on? Because that was so long ago, and now everything's so much better. Here's another one. Remember this here? The Wii, okay? Man, that was a big get, right? If you could get the Wii before Christmas and present that to the kids, you were amazing. And I remember we got the Wii, and our kids were more interested in creating the Me's instead of the Wii's. So it was my wife and I, bowling at 3 a.m. by ourselves in there. The kids are asleep. But now you can get something so much better than the Wii, right? You can get the PS5 or Switch or whatever it is. So, okay, it always gets better. Here's another one. Remember this? This was the Blu-ray disc. Okay, when that came out, that was awesome. Everybody said it's so much better than the DVD. I didn't see any difference. But anyway, we all had to upgrade because we had DVDs. Now we got to get rid of those. We got to get the Blu-rays because it's so much better, right? And now you can just stream the movie. Nobody puts out their collection of Blu-rays anymore. It's, we just watch it online, right? And then here's one more. This is the original phone. Remember this? This one here looked like you were going to battle, You'd come in there, you had to wind it up to talk and call it HQ. Well, this one here was $1,500. The original brick phone that you could drive around and act really cool if you had that phone, right? That phone had as much memory in it as your shoe, okay? There's nothing about that phone you want today other than having the cool old one, right? Now, here's why I say all this. Because all of these things started off as the greatest thing ever, and then guess what? We found something better. And the truth is, that's the story for every single one of us in every facet of our life. For some of us, the job that you have today, you could not wait to get that job. You thought, if I could just get that job, everything will be great. If I could just get that promotion, everything will be perfect. And now you've got that job, and you are dreading tomorrow. You do not want to go to that job. You hate that job. You hate those people at that job. You hate admitting you work at that particular place. Everything about it is awful, and you wish you could get a different job. Think about this when it comes to your relationships. Some of you were dating somebody, and you used to say, oh, everything is perfect. It's like we're meant to be together. We never fight, and we never will. Then you get married, and everything begins to change, right? And now you're thinking, man, what have I done? I don't know what I'm doing here. And I thought I was, trading up. Maybe I traded down, or I'm not real sure, Think about this with your own health. There was a day you could work all day, you could play all night, you could get up after 5 minutes of sleep and be ready to go. Now it's painful to get out of bed, and you're sore and you ache, and you take enough 5-hour energies for the day to be 40 hours long, right? It's just, it's constantly getting worse, and you want to find something better. Eventually, we all find ourselves in that same old kind of life. You know what I mean? You wake up in that same old bed and turn off that same old alarm and go to the same old bathroom and stare at that same old face in the mirror. You walk down the same old stairs, see the same old kids, and you go outside and get in the same old car and drive to the same old job. You get to that same old job, and you say hi to the same old coworker, sit at the same old cubicle and laugh at that same old boss, tell the same old jokes over and over again. You get in that same old car, drive the same old freeway home, and walk in that same old house. Sit down and eat that same old meal, sit in that same lazy boy, watch the same old Law and Order. Walk up them same old stairs, get in that same old bed, roll over and ask that same old wife, same old question, get the same old answer. And then, you go to bed and start all over tomorrow, That's the same old kind of life. And many of us are living that right now. And you think, is this as good as it gets? I got 60 more years of this till it's done, here's the reality for all of us. All of us we get into something, we think, I don't know, should I trade up for something bigger or better? Well, several years ago, there was this guy by the name of Kyle McDonald who decided he wanted to play the game of bigger and better. And he started with a red paper clip. Many of you got a red paper clip on the way in. You're wondering, what do I do with this? The red paper clip symbolizes what Kyle went through, because Kyle thought, I want a house, but I can't afford one, so I'm going to play a game of bigger or better with a red paper clip. And so he went to social media and he said, would anybody trade me something bigger or better for my red paper clip? And this is what happened. Somebody said yes, and they gave him this simple novelty pin. And then he took it and he said, would anybody trade me something bigger or better for this novelty pin? And he got a ceramic doorknob. Then he traded that for a camping stove, and then a 1,000-watt generator, and then a beer keg with a neon sign, and then a snowmobile, and then a vacation, and then a large van, and then one recording contract, and then 1 year rent-free in Phoenix, and then an afternoon with Alice Cooper. And then he traded that for a Kiss snow globe. And then he traded that for a Hollywood movie role, and then they finally traded that for a house in Michigan. All starting with a red paper clip. Now, since then, other people have tried this. One person recently went to TikTok and used a vial of sand and traded it up till they got a Tesla. Some of you are going to hear nothing else I have to say today, but you're like, I got to get a vial of sand and get that on TikTok to get a Tesla. Now, here's why I tell you all that, because every single one of us, we can relate to that. We start with the red paper clip of our life, and we're always trying to get bigger or better. Will this job do it? Will this house do it? Will this car do it? Will this new truck do it? Will this boat do it? Will this RV? Will this timeshare? With this spouse? Who's going to make my life bigger or better? Well, Jesus happened to know some people like this. In fact, when we read about the life of Jesus in the second half of the Bible, where we get the New Testament, these are written by eyewitnesses to what happened in Jesus' life, or those that interviewed eyewitnesses. And we read these biographies about Jesus from Matthew and Mark and Luke and John, and they tell us this story about a time that Jesus, he had these very close friends, these siblings, Mary and Martha and Lazarus. And every time Jesus and his disciples would roll into Jerusalem, they would stay just outside of Jerusalem in a little town called Bethany with Mary and Martha and Lazarus. And so one day, when Jesus was far away from them, Lazarus gets sick. And Mary and Martha are thinking, I don't know what to do. We can't go to Walgreens. I'm not real sure how to help him. So let's call Jesus. We've seen Jesus heal people before. Jesus could certainly fix this. And so while Lazarus, Jesus' good friend, is sick and not getting better, they send word to Jesus and they say, your buddy, Lazarus, our brother, is not well. And you know what Jesus does? He waits 4 days to show up. And by the time he gets there, Lazarus is dead. People are so upset with Jesus. The funeral has begun. Everybody's begun to gather outside of where Lazarus was buried. Tables and tables are set up with potato salad and macaroni salad, and everybody's brought in, all their stuff. And Jesus rolls up 4 days late, and Mary and Martha are not happy with Jesus. And Martha walks down to have a come to Jesus meeting with Jesus. I don't know if you can do that, but she sure tried. And she walks up and she basically says, what's the deal with this? I thought I was getting something bigger or better by being friends with you. And she says, Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And this is what Jesus says to her. He says, I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live even after dying. And Martha kind of nods along at this moment and says, yeah, I've heard you teach about this. I'm sure that's true, and that sounds great and all. But this is where we usually stop, and we zero in on that word resurrection. And this is what we're here today to celebrate, how a year later Jesus did this for himself, how he resurrected from the grave. And as a result of that, millions of people will traffic jam every street out there from 360 all the way to New York City to Boston to Seattle to around the world, where people are celebrating the resurrection of Jesus. And Martha's kind of nodding along saying, sure, yeah, I get that. Yeah, and that'll benefit me after I die. That maybe one day I will be able to benefit from that, and one day that will bless my life, but right now I'm living in my own pain. But we miss this. Jesus told her, I am the resurrection and the life. In other words, I'm not just here for after you die, I'm here for while you still live. I've got something for you that you just don't get to cash in on after you pass away, but rather something that can benefit you here today. In other words, real life and living can begin now. And Jesus looks at her, and then he continues, and he says this, everyone who lives in me and believes in me. In other words, it's not just believe in me. Even the demons believe in Jesus. They believe that he existed, but who's going to follow him? Who's going to live in him? Who's going to trade their paperclip in for Jesus? And then they will never die. And that's the message of the resurrection. That's the message of Easter, that Jesus has done something we can't do for ourselves. The question is, will you not only just believe in it, will you live in it? And Jesus then says to Martha the same thing he says to you and to me. Do you believe this? Do you believe this? In other words, you may have gotten all dressed up today. Some of us have only worn pink this time last year, and we've shown up today to celebrate Easter, but Jesus would look at you and say, do you believe this? Some of us are here every single weekend, and we sing the songs, we even carry a Bible. We know our way around a few topics to keep conversation interesting if we're talking about God, but Jesus would look at us and say, do you believe this? In other words, have you traded in your red paperclip life for me? Now, this may be where you are today. You're trying to figure out what's going to make your life better. And you're thinking about a different job, different house, different spouse. You're weighing in on what your life could be with something or someone else, and Jesus is saying, I think I can give you the best deal.